Right now, somewhere on your phone, a stranger is selling something live on camera, and thousands of people are buying it in real time. That is a billion-dollar idea, and it is not a new one. 40 years ago, a company turned that exact idea into an empire. At its peak, it reached into more than 200 million homes worldwide. By the late 1990s, it was selling more than $2 billion a year, one phone call at a time. Today, one of the studios where that happened sits dark. The phone banks are quiet, and in April 2026, the company that taught America to shop by watching a screen filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. Its name is QVC. So here is the strange part. Live video shopping is booming all over the world right now. So how does the company that invented it go broke in the middle of its own golden age? Chapter 1. The live store that moved into 200 million living rooms. To understand the fall, you have to remember how big this thing got. In 1986, Joseph Siegel launched a channel called QVC, which first went on the air that November. The name stood for Quality, Value, Convenience. Its first on-air product was a shower radio, priced at $11.49. Siegel was already a proven direct marketing entrepreneur. He had founded the Franklin Mint, the company that sold commemorative coins by mail. He understood one thing deeply: people will buy from someone they trust. So he made a simple bet. People would buy more if a warm, patient host showed them the product and made them feel like insiders getting a deal. He was right in a way almost no one expected. It helped that he had powerful friends. Ralph Roberts, the founder and chairman of the cable giant Comcast, was one of QVC's early backers. In exchange for a stake, cable operators agreed to carry the channel. That dropped QVC into millions of homes almost overnight. The growth was explosive. In its first full fiscal year, QVC recorded about $112 million in sales. At the time, that was widely described as a record for a brand new public company. In 1989, it swallowed a rival and doubled its footprint in a single move. By 1993, QVC could reach about 80% of the country's cable subscribing households. By 1997, it was handling around 84 million phone calls a year. It sold almost everything: jewelry, kitchen gadgets, electronics, skincare, and holiday decorations, all paraded across the screen in an endless, friendly stream. Some hosts became genuine celebrities, with fans who followed them for years. It even built rituals. The Today's Special Value, the one featured item of the day, became appointment viewing. Millions tuned in just to see what it was. Industry people had a word for it: shoppertainment. Think about what that scale really means. QVC reached 80% of America's cable homes by the early 1990s. It crossed $2 billion in annual sales soon after. For years, almost every living room with a television was also a storefront. But the real product was never the merchandise. It was the host. These were not pushy salesmen. They were familiar faces, on the air every day for decades. For a certain kind of viewer, often older, often home alone, the host was company. You did not just buy a blender. You spent an evening with someone who felt like a friend. By 2024, the parent company was still pulling in around $10 billion a year. It still reached 200 million homes worldwide across 15 channels. On paper, it was still an empire. But an empire built on one screen is only as safe as that screen, and America was about to stop watching it. Chapter 2. The screen everyone was watching kept getting smaller. The crack did not come from a rival store, it came from the device itself. From the mid-2010s on, Americans began canceling cable and satellite TV in huge numbers. The industry calls it cord cutting. It quietly hollowed out the one place QVC lived. This matters more than it sounds. QVC was never really a destination, it was a discovery. You found it while flipping channels late at night, but you cannot stumble onto channel 137 if you no longer pay for the channels. The shrinking cable bundle did not attack QVC, it just stopped delivering it to the couch. And the audience that stayed was getting older. The loyal viewers who treated hosts like friends were aging year by year. The younger shoppers QVC needed were not reaching for the remote at all. They were already looking down at their phones. There were warning tremors. In 2025, the company cut roughly 900 roles as it pushed deeper into live social shopping. The people inside could feel the ground moving. The decline showed up year after year. Revenue slid from about $11 billion in 2023 to roughly $9 billion in 2025. That is a slow, steady fade with no floor in sight. Then, the numbers turned brutal. In 2025, QVC Group reported a net loss of about $2.4 billion. Sit with that for a second. In a single year, it lost more than the whole company had sold in a strong year back in the 1990s. But most of that loss was not cash leaving the building. It was the company writing down its own brands, admitting that names it had paid billions for were worth far less now. An empire was marking down its own past. The losses still ate through its safety net. The cushion that lets a business survive a bad year was simply gone. In its annual report, filed in April 2026, the company said something no business ever wants to say out loud. It raised what accountants call going concern doubt. Stripped of the jargon, its own books were warning it might not survive the year. On April 16, 2026, QVC Group filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection in the Federal Bankruptcy Court for the Southern District of Texas. That date matters. A slow fade can feel like it has no edges, no single moment to point to. But April 16, 2026 is the day the market finally wrote it down in ink. The company tried to sound calm. It said it had plenty of cash, that vendors would be paid in full, that no layoffs were tied to the filing itself. But the deeper problem was never really about debt. It was a question QVC could not answer. If the whole country was moving to a smaller screen, why would anyone keep shopping on the big one? Chapter 3. Same idea, opposite screen. Here is the cruel twist at the center of this story. The thing that killed QVC was not a better idea. It was QVC's own idea, running on a different screen. Think about what an app like TikTok Shop actually is. A host stands in front of a camera. They show you a product. They tell you it is almost gone. You tap to buy it instantly, while the show keeps rolling. That is QVC. That is precisely what Joseph Siegel built in 1986, except now it fits in your pocket, and the host might be 22 years old. This is where putting the two side by side gets sharp. Same blueprint, opposite endings. QVC built its store inside a television set. The new apps built the same store inside a phone the customer already carried everywhere. QVC's shopper had to be home, at the right hour, on the right channel. The new version meets that shopper at a bus stop, in a waiting room, in bed at midnight. QVC needed a cable subscription to reach you. The new version only needs you to keep scrolling, and the scale is staggering. In China, where the format took off first, live stream shopping reached an estimated $807 billion in 2024. Hundreds of millions of people there now shop this way. The United States started later and is racing to catch up. By eMarketer's estimate, American live stream shopping sales hit about $14.6 billion in 2025, up nearly 50% in a single year. And they are not all young. Older shoppers drifted to live selling on Facebook and YouTube. Those feel a lot like the QVC they grew up with, except now they can talk back in real time. So the thing QVC invented did not die. It became one of the fastest growing ideas on the planet. It just stopped paying rent to QVC. So why could the original not ride the wave it created? Watch how the locks turned together. Cord cutting drained the audience QVC needed to survive. The viewers who stayed kept aging, and the young replacements never arrived because they were already buying live on their phones. Underneath all of it sat heavy debt from years of mergers. One was the 2017 deal that fused QVC and HSN into a single house, valued at about $2.1 billion. And just as the company tried to pivot, it pointed to a changing tariff and sourcing environment as another squeeze on its costs. Each force fed the next. So by the time QVC finally sprinted toward the phone, the apps were already standing there. It was Blockbuster watching Netflix grow, except Blockbuster had invented the movie. QVC did eventually make it onto the new platforms, but arriving late to a party you used to host is not the same as owning the room. Chapter 4. The studio goes dark, and the phones go quiet. Numbers this large are hard to feel, so shrink the empire down to a single building. In St. Petersburg, Florida, stood the longtime campus of the Home Shopping Network. That was the older rival QVC had grown up beside. For decades, the lights there barely went off. Cameras rolled around the clock. Phones rang in a steady, hopeful hum. In 2025, QVC Group announced it would close that campus and move HSN's broadcasting to its Pennsylvania headquarters. Florida layoff notices listed about 730 jobs tied to the St. Petersburg site. The studio went dark, and hundreds of people lost their work. St. Petersburg was not the only cut. It was part of a wider reduction of about 900 roles across QVC Group in 2025, roughly 5% of its workforce. Each number on a spreadsheet was a person who once believed this was a place to build a career. Picture one of them, an employee who spent more than 2 decades inside those studios, someone who knew the rhythm of a live broadcast in their bones. Now they are walking out of a building that will not switch its lights back on. That building was a livelihood for people who had given it their best years. When the cameras stop, a paycheck stops with them. A career built on one screen ends when that screen goes dark. Now picture the other side of the screen. Picture a composite viewer we will call Carol. For years, she turned on her television every single day to catch the today's special value. It was a routine, the way other people read a morning paper. The host knew her city. The small packages arriving at her door were quiet proof that someone, somewhere, was still talking to her. When the studio goes dark, Carol does not just lose a store. She loses a daily habit and a kind of company. For a lot of QVC's audience, that was never a small thing. The television was a voice in a quiet room. When it goes silent, the quiet gets louder. That is what decades of living room loyalty look like up close when they fade. Not a chart, a quiet house, and a screen that no longer talks back the same way. The financial wreckage was just as stark. After a year of billions in losses, the bankruptcy left the people who actually owned the company near the back of the line. By May 2026, a group of preferred shareholders was challenging the plan in court. They argued it unfairly favored the company's lenders and could wipe out their own stake. The empire was being carved up to pay down what it owed. Through all of it, the chief executive kept the optimism running. He said the company was uniquely positioned to compete and win in live social shopping. Maybe that is true, but that is the language of a company explaining a bankruptcy. It is not the language of one announcing a comeback, and it left only one question that really mattered now. Chapter 5. Who owns the living room now? For 40 years, QVC owned a small, specific piece of American life. It owned the corner of the evening when a screen quietly turned into a store. That corner did not vanish, it moved. It is worth being fair to the company here. QVC did not simply stand still and die. It pushed hard onto new platforms and became one of the top sellers on TikTok Shop in the United States. In 2025, it picked up nearly 1 million new American customers there. Its QVC Plus and HSN Plus apps reached about 1.5 million monthly users, and streaming sales grew 19%. For the first time in years, it was adding shoppers instead of bleeding them. That is a real achievement, and it deserves to be said plainly. But a comeback on someone else's platform does not pay an empire's bills. The new customers were real. They were nowhere near enough to offset a 2025 net loss of about $2.4 billion. And the company was trying to cut its debt from roughly $6.6 billion down to $1.3 billion. A few strong quarters on TikTok cannot undo years of decline on cable. Growth on a borrowed stage is still growth on someone else's terms. The host is back on camera, but the studio belongs to a stranger now. Every sale runs through a platform that can change its rules overnight. So the company now stands at a fork. The two roads could not be more different. On the first road, QVC pulls a Netflix. It accepts that the television was only ever a stage. It accepts that the real product was always the live show, and it rebuilds itself around phones and streaming before the cash runs out. On the second road, it becomes the next blockbuster. A name everyone still recognizes, attached to a format everyone now uses, owned by a company that fewer and fewer people actually need. The hard part is that the choice may not be entirely QVC's to make. The phones, the apps, and the audience all belong to other companies now. The pioneer has to ask permission to stand on a stage it once owned outright. Underneath both roads sits the real lesson. Inventing the future is not the same thing as getting to keep it. QVC proved something back in 1986. It proved that ordinary people would gather around a screen to be sold to by a warm stranger. That bet was so right that the entire planet eventually copied it. By one widely cited projection, From the research firm ARK Invest, global live shopping is around $1 trillion a year today. It could reach roughly $3.7 trillion by 2030. The format is thriving almost everywhere except the place it was born. The pioneer got the idea exactly right. It just forgot one thing. The screen was never the point. The living room was. And the living room now lives in everyone's hand. The real lesson of QVC is not about television at all. It is about confusing the stage for the show. A company can own the right idea for 40 years and still lose it. The world keeps the idea and simply changes the screen. So here is the question worth sitting with. The next time something feels permanent, ask which part is the idea. Then ask which part is just the screen it happens to run on. Which living room habit do you think disappears next? Tell me below and stay for the next breakdown.